Hey, so I have been thinking for the past couple of weeks kind of how I wanted to start my story since doing my introduction video and telling you guys what this channel is going to be about and kind of, who it is that I'm hoping to be able to help in the long run. And I really struggled in trying to figure out where I wanted to start it. And I really think the best place for me to start is right in the middle, which is when my husband and I got married. We never really talked about what our life was going to look like after we got married, as far as, if I was going to work or not work. I've been working since I was 14 years old. So not working wasn't something that I really considered an option. And then I was a single mom for 10 years. And again, I didn't really have a choice to work, which was fine. But I never really thought that I would ever be a stay-at-home wife slash mom. It just wasn't something that it wasn't that I wasn't interested. I just honestly never really thought about it. So, at the time I was working a sales job. I had my own little team that I was managing, and I had talked about moving on from that job and, finding a role with a different company, but it wasn't something that I was going to focus on doing until after we got married. So I had taken off 2 weeks, 1 week for the wedding and then 1 week for our honeymoon. And the week of our honeymoon was the first time in 5+ years that I had ever been away from my job, in the sense that not only was I on vacation, but I had zero communication with anybody. I had taken vacations before, but I always, kept in contact with my team at the very least, so that I could still, be helpful to them. But this was the first time that I had no communication with them, and I don't really think that I realized how toxic the environment at that job was until I came back from that 2 week break. And it really just kind of became something that was completely changing me. I would come home and I had nothing left in my tank for my family. I couldn't get the energy to cook. Having a conversation was really hard for me to do. It was just affecting me in ways that I didn't like. And my husband, of course, noticed it. And, we had sat down and we talked about my options. And quitting was really kind of what the decision was. And unfortunately, I did have to quit that job before finding another one to replace it. But the thought process was that I would quit. I would use the money that I had in my savings to continue helping out with the bills and things like that, until I found a new role with a different company. And then I had came across this travel business opportunity where I, would run my own travel business, booking, trips for friends, family, referrals, people that I had never met before, essentially. And, at the beginning it was great. I enjoyed it. And 2023, really, my husband and I ended the year really deciding that, we were going to bet on me and this business that I wanted to start. But, it was really nice it was nice to become that stay-at-home mom, who was cooking almost nightly, who was keeping up with, the household things, and, being able to feel present with my family all the time, not just when I had a good day at work. And it was things that my husband was noticing in me too, noticing that shift of me going from being stressed out all the time to just feeling free at the end of the day. So again, we ended the year, feeling hopeful and, deciding that we were just going to bet on me and, what I wanted to do as far as, the travel business, thing went. But then 4 days into the new year, into 2024, I found out I was pregnant and miscarried the same day. So it was definitely a rough year, a rough start to the year, of course. and that experience really slowed me down. It's definitely not something that I'm going to talk about too much now, but I'll, get further into later on. But I will say that that was the most pain that I have ever felt, physically and mentally, emotionally, in my entire life. And it's definitely something that no one will ever understand what that feels like unless they, God forbid, experience it themselves. So that year really just kind of forced me to sit with myself and, sit with myself in a way that I had never sat with myself before, and really just think and contemplate life at the end of the day. I couldn't focus on anything else. I couldn't focus on my business. I couldn't focus on the things that needed to get done here at home. All of my goals that I had created for that year, all of them went quiet. All of them went away. I was just consumed with wanting a baby, and I couldn't think about anything but wanting a baby, and with that came guilt. Mom guilt, wife guilt, all of the things. I, felt like I wasn't being the mom my daughter deserved. I wasn't being the wife, my husband deserved. I was watching him work crazy hours to support, his new little family, giving me the space to process what was happening to me. I was just feeling like I wasn't showing up fully the way that I needed to, the way that I should be, the way that he deserved. He gave me the space that I needed to fall apart. And I hated that. I hated that I couldn't be there for him the way that he was for me, because it's definitely something that was hurting him as well, in a different way, but was still hurting him. And 2024 was definitely a year of waiting, a year of sitting with myself and waiting, to see when I was going to get better, when I was going to feel better. In September, we did find out that I was pregnant again and that we were going to have a baby, and we were so excited. We waited before telling anybody, just to make sure that, everything was good. And I really thought when I got pregnant that I would go back to my old self, that I would go back to being able to focus, to be able to do all the things, and that didn't happen. I didn't just go back to myself. I was still working through things. I was trying to be tender with myself. I was trying to be patient with myself. I was trying to give myself grace, because, at the end of the day, I was growing a little human being, and, every pregnancy was different. But I definitely struggled, physically with that pregnancy. And, I was still becoming. Whatever it is that I'm becoming, I was still doing that. And as hard as 2024 was for me, it's definitely a year that I'm grateful for. It's a year that strips me of everything that I knew, and it slowed me down just in life in general, and learning to, take life day by day and try not to worry about the future so much. And it really just kind of strengthened me in a way that I never really thought something like that would strengthen me. And I do want to say that, Still Becoming, this channel will never be about constant progress, because, I definitely think that everyone has moments in life where they get stuck and there's no progress being made. But it is about surviving. It is about, surviving a year that you may not have planned. I definitely didn't plan the end of 2023. I definitely didn't plan 2024. And it kind of seems like every single time I do plan something, it never goes the way that I want it to. So, you know, I have learned to give myself grace with that, to be patient with that, you know. But, you know, I do want to remind you that if you are in a season where you feel like your life is on pause, where you can't, you know, move forward in whatever it is that you're doing, maybe that is a time for you to reshape, reshape you, because that's really kind of what happened with me. You know, I got married and my life completely changed in the blink of an eye in a way that I never thought that it would. And as hard as it was, I'm so grateful for the life that I have now, and the fact that I'm able to continue still becoming.